You ever walk into a mall feeling totally fine and leave an hour later completely drained even though you barely did anything? That experience is not random, and it is not in your head. Your brain was running a marathon you did not even know about. Let me explain exactly what happens inside your skull the moment you step through those sliding doors. Last weekend Marcus went to a large shopping mall on a Saturday afternoon. He had no specific errand to run. He just felt like getting out of the house for a bit. Nothing special planned. But the moment he walked through the entrance, something felt slightly off. He could not pinpoint what it was. The background music was playing overhead. Store announcements echoed through the corridors. Children were laughing and yelling somewhere nearby. Shopping carts rattled across the tile floors. Somewhere a food sample station was calling out to passers-by. Every time someone walked past him, he caught a whiff of cologne or fried food or laundry detergent from their clothes. His eyes darted from bright neon signs to sale banners to mannequins in store windows. He was not thinking about anything in particular. He was just walking, just browsing, just existing in that space. But after about an hour, his head started to feel heavy. A dull fog settled behind his eyes. On the drive home, he slumped in the driver's seat, feeling completely wiped out. When he got home, he collapsed on the couch and could not muster the energy to make dinner. He had not carried anything heavy. He had not run. He had barely even bought anything. So why did he feel like he had just worked a double shift? This is something that happens to millions of people, and most of them blame themselves for it. They think they are out of shape. They think they lack stamina. They think something is wrong with them. But none of that is true. The real answer lies in neuroscience, and it is far more interesting than simple physical fatigue. Your brain is an information processing machine that never stops working as long as your senses are open to the world. Every single piece of sensory data that enters through your eyes, your ears, your nose, and your skin gets picked up and sorted and analyzed by your brain. This happens whether you want it to or not. You cannot turn it off. It is automatic. It runs in the background like software you never installed but cannot delete. When you are at home in a quiet room, the amount of incoming sensory information is relatively low. The brain handles it easily. There is no strain. But the moment you walk into a shopping mall, you are stepping into one of the most sensorially dense environments that exists in everyday modern life. Sound is coming from every direction. The overhead speakers play music. The PA system delivers announcements. People are talking on phones. Groups of friends are laughing. Babies are crying. Shoes are squeaking on polished floors. Escalators hum. Cash registers beep. All of these sounds enter your ears simultaneously, and your brain attempts to process every single one of them. It tries to determine which sounds are relevant and which can be ignored. It tries to locate the sources. It tries to gauge distance and volume and emotional tone. All of this happens in milliseconds, and it happens continuously without pause for the entire duration of your visit. At the same time, your visual system is being absolutely flooded. Shopping malls are designed to grab your attention. Every store has signage competing for your gaze. Colors are bright. Displays are arranged to draw your eye. Sale tags pop out in red and yellow. Mannequins are positioned at eye level. Screens play looping videos. People move in every direction, crossing your field of vision constantly. Your brain tracks all of this movement. It monitors trajectories. It predicts paths. It calculates whether someone is going to bump into you. It notices faces and unconsciously evaluates expressions. Are they friendly? Are they a threat? Are they looking at you? This facial processing happens hundreds of times during a single mall visit, and you are completely unaware of it. Then there is smell. The food court sends waves of competing aromas through the corridors. Cinnamon rolls, fried chicken, pizza, coffee. Then you walk past the candle store, and the scent changes entirely. Then someone passes wearing heavy perfume. Then you enter a clothing store that pumps its own signature fragrance through the vents. Each new smell triggers your olfactory system, and your brain immediately goes to work categorizing it and determining whether it signals food or danger or something else entirely. Neuroscience research has confirmed something critical about this process. When sensory information exceeds the brain processing capacity, it triggers a threat response. The brain cannot tell the difference between genuinely dangerous overstimulation and the harmless overstimulation of a shopping mall. It just knows that too much is coming in too fast. So it activates the sympathetic nervous system. This is the fight or flight system. It was designed to help our ancestors escape predators and survive in the wild. When it activates, it floods the body with cortisol and adrenaline. These stress hormones increase heart rate. They tighten muscles. They sharpen focus temporarily, but at a huge metabolic cost. In a shopping mall, there is no tiger chasing you. There is no cliff to jump off. There is no enemy to fight. But your brain has decided that the sheer volume of sensory input constitutes a situation that requires heightened alertness. So the stress hormones flow. And they keep flowing for as long as you remain in that environment. 1 hour of this sustained hormonal response is exhausting. 2 hours is devastating. The fatigue you feel afterward is not from walking. It is not from carrying bags. It is the aftermath of your brain burning through its energy reserves trying to process an overwhelming amount of information, while simultaneously running a stress response that was never meant to last that long. Think of it like a computer. Imagine opening your laptop and launching 30 browser tabs at once. Each tab is loading a different website with videos and animations and pop-ups. You are only looking at one tab. You are only reading one page. But in the background, all 30 tabs are consuming memory and processing power. The fan starts spinning louder. The laptop gets hot. Everything slows down. Eventually, it might freeze entirely. Your brain in a shopping mall is that laptop with 30 tabs open. You are consciously focused on maybe 1 or 2 things at any given moment. What store to walk into next? What your companion just said? Whether that jacket looks good. But underneath that conscious awareness, your brain is simultaneously processing hundreds of background inputs. The music. The voices. The movement, the lights, the smells, the temperature changes, the spatial navigation, the social awareness. All of it running at once, draining your mental battery with every passing minute. When you finally leave and get in your car, your brain starts closing those tabs. The relief you feel is real. But the damage is done. The energy has been spent. The cortisol is still circulating. That is why you feel wiped out on the drive home. That is why you collapse on the couch afterward. That is why making dinner feels impossible even though you technically did nothing strenuous all day. Now here is where it gets even more interesting. Not everyone experiences this the same way. You might notice that some people can spend an entire day at the mall and come home energized while others are destroyed after 45 minutes. This difference is not about weakness or strength. It is about brain architecture. There is a neurological mechanism called sensory gating. This is your brain built-in filter system. Its job is to sort incoming information and decide what reaches your conscious awareness and what gets blocked before it ever gets there. Think of it like a bouncer at a club. The bouncer looks at each piece of sensory information and decides whether it gets in or gets turned away. For some people, this bouncer is strict. Only the most relevant information gets through. Background noise gets blocked. Peripheral movement gets ignored. Ambient smells get filtered out. These people can walk through a crowded mall and only process what they are directly focusing on. Everything else gets handled quietly in the background with minimal energy expenditure. But for other people, this bouncer is lenient. Almost everything gets through. The background music gets processed at full volume. The peripheral movement gets tracked in detail. The ambient smells get analyzed thoroughly. Every face gets evaluated. Every sound gets categorized. The brain of these individuals is doing significantly more work in the same environment. In the 1990s, a psychologist named Dr. Elena Hartfield introduced the concept of sensory processing sensitivity. This describes the spectrum of how deeply and thoroughly different brains process sensory information. People on the higher end of this spectrum have nervous systems that pick up more subtle stimuli and process them more deeply. This is not a disorder. It is not a dysfunction. It is a trait. Roughly 15 to 20% of the population falls on the higher end of this sensitivity spectrum. If you are one of these people, your brain in a shopping mall is receiving and processing substantially more information than the person walking right next to you. You are hearing things they are not hearing. You are noticing movements they are not noticing. You are picking up smells they are not registering. Your brain is doing maybe 2 or 3 times the processing work in the identical environment. Of course, you are more tired afterward. It would be strange if you were not. This plays out in everyday life beyond the mall too. You sit down at a library to study and the person next to you keeps turning pages. That rustling sound enters your awareness and your brain cannot ignore it. You try to relax at a coffee shop, but the conversation at the next table keeps pulling your attention. Someone talks to you while the television is on and you cannot focus on either one because your brain is trying to process both simultaneously. These are all signs of a sensitive sensory processing system. It is not a flaw. It is actually a feature that comes with significant advantages. People with high sensory sensitivity tend to notice subtle changes in facial expressions. They pick up on emotional shifts in a room before anyone else does. They notice small details that others miss entirely. They think deeply about things because their brains are wired to process thoroughly rather than superficially. The same brain that gets exhausted in a shopping mall is the brain that makes you an incredible listener and a deeply empathetic friend and a person who notices beauty in places others walk right past. It is the same trait expressing itself in different contexts. In a quiet, intimate setting, that sensitivity is a gift. In an overwhelming sensory environment, it is a drain. Both things are true at the same time. There is another factor that influences how badly a mall trip affects you, and that is your baseline state going in. Your brain has a finite amount of processing energy available on any given day. Think of it as a battery. When you wake up after a good night of sleep, the battery is full. You can handle a lot. But if you slept poorly, or you had a stressful day at work, or you have been worrying about something, or you spent the morning in back-to-back meetings, then your battery is already partially drained before you even arrive at the mall. You are starting from a deficit. The same mall trip that would be manageable on a fully charged day becomes devastating on a half-empty battery. This is why the same person can have completely different experiences at the same mall on different days. Monday evening, after a calm day at home, you browse the stores and feel fine. Saturday afternoon, after a stressful work week, you walk in and feel overwhelmed within 20 minutes. It is not inconsistency. It is not unpredictability. It is simply math. Available energy minus required energy equals remaining energy. If available energy is already low, you hit zero much faster. Age also plays a subtle role here, though not in the way most people think. It is not that you are getting weaker as you age. It is that your brain recovery speed changes over time. In your 20s, you could push through overstimulation and bounce back by the next morning. In your 30s and 40s, the recovery might take longer. The mall trip fatigue might linger into the next day. This is normal neurological aging. The processing capacity remains largely the same. The recovery timeline simply extends a bit. Knowing this allows you to plan accordingly rather than beating yourself up about it. Now let me explain why shopping malls specifically are worse than other crowded environments. You might handle a busy train station just fine. You might navigate a crowded grocery store without much trouble. But shopping malls hit different. The reason is that malls deliver multiple types of sensory assaults simultaneously. A train station is primarily auditory and visual. A grocery store is primarily visual and olfactory. But a shopping mall is auditory and visual and olfactory all at maximum intensity, all at the same time. That combination creates a multiplicative effect on brain processing demands. When one type of stimulus is high, the brain manages. When two types are high simultaneously, the load more than doubles because the brain has to coordinate across sensory systems. When three or more types are all high at once, the processing cost skyrockets. The brain is cross-referencing and integrating and prioritizing across multiple channels, and it is enormously expensive in terms of energy. On top of the raw sensory processing, there is another layer that makes malls uniquely draining: decision fatigue. Every moment in a mall presents choices. Which direction to walk? Which store to enter? Whether to look at something more closely or keep moving? Whether to try something on or not? Whether to buy it or put it back? What to eat for lunch? Which restaurant? What to order? Where to sit? Each of these decisions costs mental energy. They feel trivial in the moment. But your brain processes each one as a genuine choice requiring evaluation and commitment. After dozens or hundreds of these micro-decisions, your decision-making machinery gets depleted. This is why you might feel increasingly unable to make choices as your mall visit goes on. This is why you might snap at a companion who asks where you want to eat after you have been browsing for 2 hours. Your decision-making fuel tank is empty. The combination of sensory overload plus continuous decision-making is what makes shopping malls a uniquely exhausting environment. There's almost no other everyday setting that delivers both of these drains simultaneously at such high intensity for such an extended period. The mall designers know this, by the way. Modern shopping malls are intentionally designed to keep you inside longer than you planned. Notice how there are no clocks on the walls. Notice how windows are rare or positioned to prevent you from seeing the sky. Notice how natural light is replaced by artificial lighting that stays at the same brightness regardless of time of day. These design choices remove your natural time cues. Without sunlight shifting and without clocks visible, your brain loses track of how long you have been there. 2 hours feels like 45 minutes. By the time you realize how long you have been inside, your brain has been running in overdrive far longer than you intended. The fatigue hits you suddenly, not because it appeared suddenly, but because you did not notice it accumulating. Now let me give you specific strategies that can reduce this exhaustion significantly. These are based on how the brain actually works, and they are practical enough to use starting this week. The first strategy is choosing your timing deliberately. The amount of stimulation in a mall varies enormously depending on when you go. A weekday morning is a completely different neurological experience than a Saturday afternoon. Fewer people means fewer faces to process. Less noise means less auditory load. Shorter lines mean fewer decisions about where to stand and how long to wait. If you have the flexibility to go during off-peak hours, you will spend the same amount of time in the same mall and come home with dramatically more energy remaining. If you absolutely must go during peak hours, then go in with the explicit expectation that this will be tiring. Anticipated fatigue is psychologically easier to handle than unexpected fatigue. When you expect it, you do not add the extra layer of confusion and self-blame on top of the tiredness. The second strategy is defining your purpose before you enter. When you walk into a mall without a plan, your brain enters scanning mode. It evaluates everything as potentially relevant. Every store becomes a possible destination. Every product becomes a possible purchase. This maximizes the number of decisions you have to make and maximizes the amount of stimuli your brain treats as important. But when you walk in with a clear purpose, your brain can filter more effectively. You are here for shoes. Everything that is not the shoe store gets deprioritized. Your sensory filter tightens because your brain knows what is relevant and what is not. You walk with direction. You decide less. You process less. You leave faster, and you leave less drained. The third strategy is building breaks into your visit. Research has shown that spending even 10 minutes in natural light and relative quiet can measurably reduce cortisol levels. Your brain needs periodic rest from stimulation to process and consolidate what it has already taken in. Without breaks, the sensory load just accumulates and accumulates until you hit a wall. So every hour or so, step outside. Stand in the fresh air. Look at the sky. Take 3 deep breaths. Do not look at your phone during this break. The phone is just more input. More stimulation. More processing. The goal is to give your brain a period of minimal input so it can catch up. Even 5 minutes makes a measurable difference. If going outside is not practical, find the quietest spot inside the mall. Usually this is a bench near the restrooms on an upper floor, or a corner of the food court far from the restaurants. Sit down. Close your eyes. Let your brain go idle for a few minutes. This is not laziness. This is maintenance. This is like letting your overheated laptop cool down before running more programs. The fourth strategy is managing input through tools. If sound is your primary trigger, consider wearing noise-canceling earphones. Even without music playing, they reduce ambient noise significantly, and that alone lowers your brain processing load substantially. If visual stimulation is your primary trigger, consider wearing a hat with a brim or sunglasses indoors. This might feel awkward, but it physically reduces the amount of visual information reaching your brain by narrowing your field of vision and reducing glare. These are not signs of weakness. They are intelligent adaptations. You are using tools to protect a neurological system that you now understand. The fifth strategy, and perhaps the most important one, is what you do after you get home. Most people come home exhausted from the mall and immediately reach for their phone. They scroll social media. They watch videos. They check messages. But this is the worst thing you can do for your depleted brain. Your brain just spent hours processing massive amounts of sensory information. It is exhausted. It needs recovery time. And recovery means reducing input to as close to zero as possible. When you get home, give yourself 30 minutes of quiet. No screens. No music. No television. Lie down and stare at the ceiling. Sit in a dim room with your eyes closed. Stand on your porch and listen to nothing in particular. This 30 minutes allows your brain to begin consolidating and clearing the backlog of information it accumulated during your mall visit. The cortisol levels start to drop. The nervous system shifts from sympathetic activation back toward parasympathetic rest. Your body begins to relax. The fog starts to lift. If you skip this recovery period and immediately flood your brain with more stimulation, the fatigue extends. It carries into the evening. It might carry into the next morning. You wake up still feeling tired and you do not understand why, because all you did yesterday was walk around the mall. That lingering fatigue is your brain never having gotten the quiet time it needed to reset. So protect those 30 minutes. They are not optional for brains that process deeply. They are essential maintenance. Now I want to address something that I think matters more than any strategy. If you are someone who gets exhausted by shopping malls and crowded places, I want you to stop blaming yourself. Stop asking what is wrong with you. Stop comparing yourself to people who seem unaffected. Stop telling yourself you need more stamina or more willpower. There is nothing wrong with you. Your brain is simply processing more information than other brains in the same environment. That is not a defect. That is a characteristic. And that same characteristic is probably the reason you are good at things other people are not good at. You probably notice when a friend is upset before they say anything. You probably pick up on tension in a room the moment you walk in. You probably think deeply about things that others skim over. You probably appreciate beauty and art and nature in ways that feel profound to you. You probably feel things deeply, both the hard things and the beautiful things. All of that comes from the same neurological wiring that makes shopping malls exhausting. You cannot have one without the other. The sensitivity that drains you in chaotic environments is the same sensitivity that enriches your life in calm ones. So do not try to fix it. Do not try to toughen up. Do not try to force yourself to be unbothered. Instead, learn your limits. Learn your patterns. Learn what drains you and what restores you. Plan your life around your actual brain rather than around some imaginary brain you think you should have. Go to the mall on a Tuesday morning instead of Saturday afternoon. Bring earphones. Set a time limit. Park near an exit. Build in a break. Come home and rest. These are not accommodations for someone who is broken. These are intelligent choices made by someone who understands how their own brain works. That is self-awareness, not weakness. The next time you go to a shopping mall and come home feeling wiped out, I want you to remember what happened in your brain during that visit. Your sensory systems received thousands of data points per minute. Your brain processed every single one. Your stress response activated because the load exceeded comfortable thresholds. Your decision-making system handled dozens of choices. Your spatial navigation tracked hundreds of moving people. Your emotional processing evaluated countless faces. You did all of that while appearing to simply walk around and browse. You were not doing nothing in there. Your brain was working harder than it works during most office jobs. The fatigue is earned. It is real. It is valid. And it has nothing to do with how strong or weak you are as a person. So take care of yourself after those trips. You deserve the rest.